announced a need to establish endowment a few years ago, saying simply that if we imagine a Polish solidarity movement in 1980 after strikes in Yarship in Gdańsk, applying for support from European Union, filling up 172 pages of applications, and then waiting 1.5 years for a decision, that was already the moment when the martial law started and when all leaders of the initial solidarity were arrested. So time is an important factor in the moment of transition, and the ability to quickly react to needs is something that needs to be addressed. So first, endowment received the simple task: be flexible and be quick. We are established, we are fully functional from 1st July. We open a window for applications. First application started to arrive to us in the mid of August, and by the end of September, we already had the first 10 funding decisions. So less than 7 weeks, we review applications and provided funding. The geographic mandate of the endowment is the whole neighborhood, as it is defined within the European Neighborhood Instrument. So it is Middle East and Africa, Middle East and North Africa, and Eastern Partnership countries, altogether 15 countries. What is the key priority? Key priority is to respond to quick, urgent needs of political and civil society, especially those needs that cannot be easily covered by other existing instruments. For example, providing financing to non-registered organizations, providing financing also to individuals that are engaging themselves in social political activism. Also providing core institutional funding, the type of funding that is quite unpopular among donors because it's not that sexy as, for example, nice projects where it's easy to report them in the beautiful printed a-year reports on development or democracy support provided. So endowment try to fill those gaps, to address those gaps, but it is not a magic bullet that will solve all existing problems and suddenly come with a solution that no one thought ever before. It's not true, and this kind of expectation would not be justified and will not be fair, of course. At the moment, our key attention is focused to make people in those countries aware that we are here, as we are trying to provide as little information on our priorities and as much opportunity to listen to the demands. Because again, we have another very important lessons we learned from our own transition, that when there are funds available and then you provide priorities by the donor, there are a professional group of drafters that draft specifically according to the priorities you expect to receive. So you're receiving beautiful projects, but actually little work is done on the ground. So what we are waiting is a genuine initiatives just based on this, that people want to change something in their community, in their environment. And here we are ready to respond to those needs. But again, as being a small foundation, having very limited funds, we intend to give a startup money. We intend to give an initial funding, and then we hope, and also to build capacity, which will allow later on for more and bigger donors, more established and bigger donors, to pick those projects as already well proved in practice that people are doing a very good work. What is then a reflection from the field, what we are now looking at as important input to our work? First of all, I would like to say that a lot of attention in every democracy support programs is paid to social media and online information and online-based politics. But what we see now, and it is more and more visible, that this huge energy that is accumulated online has no easy transmission offline, and for various reasons. That includes also the reason that the people who are doing this are not willing to go from online to offline. So there is a degree, there is a lack, there is a vacuum of leadership. When I've been to Cairo in March, I've heard from the people there, young people, our revolution was stolen. They do not feel represented. They do not recognize the faces that are making deals then and now. What does it mean? They will come back to the streets 6 months later, and they will come back to the streets next 6 months later, because they do not feel represented. So we need to try to help them to make sure that their energy, their recognition built online finds a proper structure, organizational structure, not just walking through the streets and staying in the Tahrir Square, but really trying to engage them into politics and making their face visible to their constituency, to those who would support them. That's extremely, I believe, important. So this is the first strong input from the field, that the online activities, they need quickly to find their offline emanation, realization. We cannot just talk about building the road. We have to build the road. Second is, it's also related with the online activities, that because social media offers that everybody talks to everybody, finally, there is a fragmentation of leadership. And the transitions that comes from our own experience, they need a clear and sound leadership. So the people who are ready, who are able to lead a certain agenda. And the third element that comes directly from the region is that the people are very impatient. This I especially often am hearing from my Tunisian friends. They are saying, in my lifetime, I will vote 3, 4, 5 times, because it's every 4, every 5 years. I have no time. I need everything in 6 months. If they cannot deliver, let's change them. Then we organized, for example, the visit of Lech Walesa to Tunisia, and his only message was, please be patient. You cannot change your leadership every 6 months. You have to take a risk. But it's very difficult. People are impatient. They were waiting so much time for a change. So that's a huge challenge, where I think the initiatives like Endowment can help, can provide support, can provide more capacity building in order to control those in power, but at the same time not necessary to change them every 6 months. In a sense, to empower people not only to go on street and ask for change, but also to empower people to control and influence a political agenda. And here are the key priorities for the endowment. What Europe can do better, let me finish with a few words of conclusion. I think, and I fully support Ibrahim, when he mentioned so-called dead aid. That was Nambisa Moyo who wrote about this a few years ago, saying that a few investments of international companies does more than the aid programs, and that the migration policy or opening market for products from those countries does more than any kind of assistance. Same maybe we can say about democracy support. But if we think of all those aspects, economic policy, aid programs, democracy support, opening a political relation, and at the same time strongly guarding our principles, being coherent in this. So whenever there is a coup d'etat in Egypt, naming it clearly and making military to observe basic human rights, that type of coherence, together with economic policy, with migration policy, can make a difference. So what I'm saying, what Europe can do better, let us be more coherent in what we are doing. Not only within the European Union, but also with the single nation policies, in order to make sure that the French policy, the German-French policy, the Italian and the Spanish in the region is in accordance with this general framework. If we are coherent, the results are going to be there.
Okay, thank you very much. That's very helpful. Okay, incorporating a number of lessons that come out of the experience of our democratic transitions. So please, we have half an hour. I think we open the floor for your comments, questions. We take a few, and then there will be time to respond. And I think the lady was first, then you were second, and then the gentleman, and then you.
Hi everybody, my name is Dania, I'm from Libya. I wanted to make 3 points, which the first one is youth involvement in any society is crucial to the development of that country or that society. And when you're dealing with a country like Libya, which like I said before, 42 years has no experience and no involvement in any sort of NGOs, you get people who are starting all these NGOs, but they lack the basic structure and they don't have the foundation or the experience that they need to be as effective as they could be. And when you're talking about governments, when you're talking about youth or people in the streets who aren't being patient, they have a reason, because there's no transparency or communication with the government. If the government was transparent or was communicating with people, then the people would be more understanding. When you don't have these two things, then even if somebody wants to be patient, it makes it that much harder for them. In my opinion, and I agree with Mr. Ibrahim when he said that you shouldn't just look at Libya as a security situation, just through the eyes of the security situation there. But in my opinion, if you want to help Libya, there are 2 things you should do, or 2 things you can do, is to create youth platforms for youth to start gaining experience, so that when they enter or when they want to be involved in the government, they have the experience that they need to. So they're not just coming and, protesting, or, they could be more effective if they had training programs, or like the EU has, I think it's called the European Youth Platform, something like that. And at the same time, if you find ways to help the government be more transparent and communicate with the people, so that both sides can be understanding with one another. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Sir.
صديقي إبراهيم.
Hold on.
صديقي إبراهيم تحدث عما لا يجب أن يفعله الاتحاد الأوروبي في البلدان العربية، وأنا أريد أن أضيف بعض القضايا المرتبطة بما ذكره هو شخصيا حول هذا الموضوع. أولا، أعتقد أن محاولة الاتحاد الأوروبي استنساخ تجارب تم في دول البلقان أو دول جنوب شرقي أوروبا، غربي أوروبا، هذه جنوب شرقي أوروبا لا تصلح في كثير من الأحيان لمجتمعاتنا العربية والإسلامية. هذا ثانيا. أولا. ثانيا، لا يجب النظر إلى ما يجري بالبلدان العربية أو إلى ما تعيشه المجتمعات العربية من فوضى فقط من خلال النظر إلى أنه هي مصدر للإرهاب. هي قد تكون كذلك، وهذا ناجم عن سياسات الاستبداد التي ظلت طيلة 6 عقود من الزمن، مع غياب المجتمع المدني، حرمان المرأة من حقوقها، عدم وجود أي حقوق واعتراف بحقوق الأقليات العرقية والدينية. ثالثا، أعتقد بأن ليست هناك لدى الاتحاد الأوروبي سياسة منظمة فيما يخص العمل في خلق منظمات المجتمع المدني. في كثير من الأحيان تصرف أموال طائلة على منظمات غير فاعلة، يجري إفساد هذه المنظمات وتحويل كثير من هذه المبالغ التي يقدمها دافعي الضرائب الأوروبيين إلى جهات غير الجهة التي يمكن أن تقوم بها. ثالثا، أنا تحدثت العام الماضي في هذه الندوة في صوفيا بلاتفورم رقم 3 مع مندوبة الاتحاد الأوروبي في العراق. الشيء الذي أحزنني أنها قالت أن لديها أموال كثيرة ولكنها لا تستطيع ولا تعرف كيف تنفقها في العراق. العراق يحتاج إلى كل ربما يورو من جانب الاتحاد الأوروبي، لأن أيضا هناك مشاكل كثيرة وأنتم تعرفونها أكثر مني. هناك انعدام للمجتمع المدني على الرغم من مرور أكثر من 10 سنوات على التغيير في العراق. هناك أيضا استنساخ لنظام صدام حسين، وهناك استنساخ جديد للدكتاتورية في العراق، وهذه يجب أن تكون يعني محل اهتمام كبير من جانب الاتحاد الأوروبي، الذي يجب أن يفرض شروطا على الحكومة العراقية قبل أن يقوم بأي التزامات ويقدم يقدم أي التزامات. المسألة الأخيرة اللي أعتقد أنها مهمة جدا هي أنه يجب عندما يضع الاتحاد الأوروبي مهمات محددة أو مشاريع وبرامج محددة سواء في ليبيا أو في مصر أو في أي دولة أخرى من الدول العربية، يجب أن يعي مسألة أساسية أنه عقارب الساعة في هذه البلدان هي غير عقارب الساعة في أوروبا. هناك مسألة أساسية أنه إذا كانت برنامج أو مشروع يحتاج في أوروبا إلى شهر أو شهرين أو ثلاثة، يعني أنه يحتاج لتنفيذه إلى أكثر من سنة. أعتقد أن هذه مسائل مهمة يجب النظر إليها. شكرا جزيلا.
Okay, thank you very much. I think you, sir, would.
Yes, hello. My question is mainly for Ms. Apostolova. Apostolova. Sorry, I didn't know where to put the emphasis. You mentioned that there is need for new thinking with the Arab Spring, and microphone. Yeah, it's not working. Now it's working. Okay. You mentioned that there was a need for new thinking for the new circumstances in the region, and my question is simply, what sort of new thinking is happening? On what lines? Because the old instruments like Barcelona and the ENP are modeled on assumptions that don't exist anymore. I mean, especially the ENP, which assumes that you have a sort of a variant of a Stalinist regime that you have to de-Stalinize. So in Libya, it doesn't fit. In Syria, it doesn't fit. The new societies that are emerging in post-collapse of a dictatorship are more similar to the EU itself, to the way the European Council works. You know, you have 27 incoherent, incohesive countries with different opinions, 28, sorry, with not very clear legitimacy for the leadership, and it demands a totally different type of thinking than sending experts to Bashar al-Assad to give him a new electoral law and a party law and all these instruments that exist in the NP and that are derived from enlargement, and that's so I'm interested in the new type of thing. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Yes, please, the gentleman. Yes, and then. And I think there was someone in the back.
Thank you. My name is Hazim. I'm from the Egyptian Embassy in Sofia. I wanted to respond to the remarks that the EU should have a coherent policy or a position toward nation states in the region, specifically Egypt, and call what happened a coup. I believe the EU did have a coherent position, is that it respected the wills and the wishes of the people, of the millions of the people who went into the streets on June 30th. And there was no other way to the EU except to respect that. Otherwise, would have been in a conflict in the streets between millions, in the people in the streets of Cairo. I believe the millions of the people who went in January 2011 for 18 days in Tahrir Square to remove the old regime, and it ended up with the interim, with the army intervening, and for the first interim transitional period, it's very similar to the same things that happened now when the last president, President Morsi, democratically elected, but unfortunately governed undemocratically, and he did not listen to the many advices and calls for early elections that would have saved Egypt from going in a new direction. That was the only way to represent, for the people to go into the streets and represent and show how much they are they don't like him and they want him to be removed. The military had to intervene then, and now we are in the second transitional period. We hope it will be done with the constitution changes now, and then a referendum on the constitution in a month's time, then parliamentary elections, presidential elections in a 5 months period. So by early summer, would be back to the normal democratic process. But just to make my point clear, the EU did have a coherent policy which it respected the wishes of the people who went into the streets on June 30th.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.